Bro, you talking mad skittles for a leprechaun. You talking mad skittles for a leprechaun. Now get up out the way, get my replay on. Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies. And no, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. But here is a star chart replay sent in by Thorstein. He is going to be showing us a fantastic match in the M60A2, a much less popular version of the very capable MBT, a minor annoyance back in its day when its stabilized ATGM capable main gun, similar, just beautiful, to that found on the Sheridan, the 150mm gun launcher, was very capable once you spaded the vehicle. I'm not sure if Thorstein is in that situation, as he appears to be using heat rounds at this point. There are a few limitations to the M60A2. First off, the number of ATGMs carried in the vehicle has been reduced to, it's a handful. It's not terrible for most matches, but you probably will run out of ATGM ammunition. Das Leopard, and he is Das Vidania. Those heat rounds pack a punch. They don't have quite as much chemical armor penetration as you might like, especially if you happen to find yourself facing off against something that has reactive armor, although the only reaction that Swedish angled armor gave to the heat round was to set off the fuse and disappear. Firing into the smoke, target acquired, target serviced, service with a smile. The M60A2 Starship, a futuristic take on a very capable MBT. It has seen quite a number of changes since its introduction. The aforementioned reduction in carryable ATGMs, leading to a much different playstyle for many Starship players. Not sure if this is an unspaded vehicle or if Thorstein is just getting used to using the heat rounds, although I suspect the former is the case. The battle rating has also been adjusted, and now may be a good time to try out the Starship again. A lot has changed around this vehicle, and it looks like you get the neat 50 cal as well. On the XM1, there's a cool, it's like an experimental 50 cal heavy machine gun. I don't think it really is much of a difference from the old Ma Deuce, but the muzzle brake looks wicked and futuristic and awesome, as do many of the accoutrements available on the M60A2. In addition to your typical M60 capabilities, decent mobility, although it falls behind some of the more modern MBTs that it can be paired off against. A very capable turret, both in terms of gun handling, if not muzzle velocity, as well as armor protection, which, again, at this tier matters far less, but it can save you every now and then, even though it's not reliable, and that's far more than can be said for objects like the BMP or even most of the Leopards. The A1, with its angled foreplate, can sometimes bounce a shot on a lucky roll, but I'd put my money on the M60A2 before any of those vehicles in terms of sheer turret protection any day, even though you have that disgusting mutant cupola that must have had something to do with bribes between GM or Chrysler or whoever and the whatever career military personnel were in charge of procuring the equipment for the U.S. Armed Services. There's a ridiculous amount of gravy that gets exchanged between, let's say, industry and politically appointed officials, be they military or civilian personnel. In any case, Torstein is just absolutely greasing these few fools, getting one-shot kill after one-shot kill with his heat, that's just heat, rounds. I'm not sure what 150mm heat FS would look like, but I'd love to find out. Come on, somebody please find secret documents that can give a 150mm heat FS to the M60A2. I need it for scientific purposes. Although, I've heard, and this could change any time because that's the way chemical rounds work in this game. Gaijin hasn't decided if they're slightly weaker than the upper mandible of Yuri the tank driver, or remember when heat rounds would get absorbed by like the corpse of knocked out players? That was pretty ridiculous. Crew members. No, not of course a corpse. They're sleeping. They just get kind of sleepy and lose the ability to perform their job. As of course, no pixels are harmed in the making of War Thunder. Speaking of, I wonder what the amount of kills Torstein has gotten up to. It's an incredible number. If you've been keeping count, he's just shot everyone he sees. It's like, hey, how do I do good in War Thunder? Just shoot the enemy. If you can manage to kill everyone you see, you're doing great. I feel like this might not be the best video for advice in War Thunder, gameplay or commentary wise. But if you're listening very carefully, because I've turned it down by 12 decibels, but you can hear an enemy engine. And this is a good time to go over the typical advice where I say find some cover, know where the enemy is likely to be, listen for where they are between gunfire and engine sounds, and the advantage even in these stabilizer having vehicles is to be sitting still and aiming for where the enemy is going to be when they decide to peek out. And then you have just enough time to make good decisions before, enemy SPAA, I think you have a shot on him. It's a Gepard or a Geparudo. I'm not quite sure, but it is indeed, yes, the old German Leopard Geopard that makes flying aircraft so dangerous, and yet against the mighty Starship, who has the advantage in knowing where his enemy is because of those spraying 30 mils, really comes through for our guy in the end. One shot from an enemy bounces off what I think was the upper front plate of the M60, which is quite well angled. If not, then it could have been Hesh hitting the turret or something. Who knows? I'm sure that Pasta Rigatoni boy probably had some response to what just happened, but it was doubtful that it was rapturous enjoyment. Even so, that Italian spaghetti mobile is in something of an up tier here, so at that point I'd say brush yourself off, and try again. What else is there to say other than it might be time for me to take the old Starship out for a cruise as well. I was enamored with the vehicle to begin with, but being an early adopter of the vehicle, and back then even less experienced in top-tier gameplay as we look at an STRV than I am now, I didn't have a great time. It's kind of a turd as a stock vehicle, unless you're Torstein getting another kill, this time on STRV, one-shotting the Swedish tank destroyer even from the side can be far more tricky than one might suppose, unless you have a big honkin' chonker of a 150 millimeter high explosive anti-tank round to introduce weaponized what do we call this? Weaponized gaseous copper. What's the form of matter? It's not a plasma. Yes, into the crew compartment. And of course, while I was rambling on, yet another kill for Torstein, taking down yet another Leopard and proving the potential of this interesting American design. Quite a strange vehicle, but a very reasonable design for an infantry support platform. You've got fantastic visibility. You have an artillery piece that can respond very quickly to targets with a variety of ammunition. One of the downsides to the entire ATGM idea is that guided missiles are extremely expensive, and in what's it called, where your side has a lot better technology than the other side, asynchronous warfare, something like that. But when you're facing off against goat-smelling Turbistanis who are wielding, rifle caliber firearms from the World War I era, launching ATGMs is kind of a lot more expensive than it needs to be. So the demands of recent warfare, even against forces in places like Vietnam, proves the M60A2 not all that ideal as a weapons platform in terms of firing missiles. But the, again, artillery grade cannon available in the vehicle certainly makes it useful in its own respect. But at that point, why not just bring some artillery along for the ride? Fantastic match by Torstein. And next up, some Phantom gameplay brought to you by AK. The War Eagle is going to have an extremely snappy match in this top-tier American jet, and you have just about enough time to admire the beauty of this burly multi-role jet fighter, interceptor, close air support god. The Phantom, of course, designed as an interceptor and with fantastic speed and altitude capabilities, well fitted for the role, was of course pressed into service as a multi-role fighter because of the demand and the lack of advanced production aircraft to fill those roles at the time. Taking down an enemy F-4C with a guided missile and switching targets in a leisurely fashion. AK demonstrating very nicely what this aircraft excels at, and that is speed. High-speed maneuvers, nice missiles, capable of getting nice missile kills to the tune of 4 heat-seeking missiles that usually don't completely suck unless the servers just decide that that will be your fate. And enemy F-100 low on speed, AK turning in, rolling scissors underneath to try and keep in engagement range, as he appears to have just enough room to maneuver. The enemy jet not focusing on him at this time. AK's team nicely holding down the numbers advantage in the local area. Third missile away, tracking nicely, and a beautiful missile kill. Missiles in War Thunder definitely are going to be the meta moving on as the next tier of aircraft are filled out in the game, so it's always nice to see these heat-seeking missiles behaving well. I've certainly seen other terms of missile behavior in the game, especially when I was trying out the P-10, which I found to be an extremely enjoyable purchase for myself. Helicopters, of course, being easily the most painful grind in War Thunder, and also the most pay to win when you compare the performance of regular tech tree helicopters up until the point you get to top tier to what you'll be experiencing from a stock perspective. And then of course a top tier helicopter that's stock is absolute garbage compared to any premium because the modules are so important as well. I suspect the missiles are a good purchase for this aircraft, or sorry, a good focus. I also have heard that spading top tier jets is absolute AIDS cancer, but I haven't put a lot of research into that idea. I've mentioned that top tier is not a really comfortable place for me, but I actually did have a good time playing some top tier helicopters. And I suppose if it's that easy, if you can pick up a beautiful 5 kills with missiles, did AK actually fire his cannon at some point? I'm not quite sure, honestly. But there it is, a quick win for AK's team. Jet matches are ridiculously fast-paced, and the added lethality of heat-seeking missiles certainly does nothing to change that dynamic. Although, Captain Jack Sparrow, as I stretch out my leg, which is currently Charlie horsing underneath me right now. Oh god! Oh, this is what happens when I sit on my feet while I'm recording, and I lose track of how little blood circulation my legs are getting. Oh dear. Sorry about that. I was in a mild amount of pain, and I was acting it up for the camera. Or the mic, I guess. But here we have Captain Jack already with his first air-to-air cannon kill in the old Nippon whale. It really reminds me of an orca, a killer whale, a shamu, if you will. And I actually live on the Oregon coast, so it's not a really long drive to the Newport Aquarium where they had the whale from Free Willy, and that might be dating myself a little bit, but back in the 90s, there was this thing called killer whales in captivity, and you don't see quite as much of that as you did back then. People sort of realized that these big, beautiful, majestic creatures, they aren't really meant to live in Olympic swimming pools. But it was pretty glorious to witness that creature up close back in the day. They do belong in the wild, though. And another thing that cannot be contained, oh my gosh, those 4 30mm cannons firing tracer rounds, each of which high explosive incendiary, a single shot capable of shredding an enemy aircraft, and in this volume capable of dealing tremendous amounts of damage, as we see, picking up a quick 4 kills in some intense head-on action, and facing off against its most fearsome foe, the A2D flying squid of an American attacker is still not capable of ceasing the fury of Captain Jack, who picked up an incredible 6 kills in a fantastically short amount of time in the Japanese jet bomber that never really existed, but just looks so beautiful in the skies of War Thunder. Anyway, that just about does it for today's video, and I actually talked about the action a little bit. I've been playing a lot of Mount and Blade lately, and that has been just incredibly enjoyable for me. It is a fantastic game. It does not run tremendously well on my PC, and I suspect I'm not the only one experiencing those issues, but it's not terrible either. The game definitely starts to chunk when you get into action happening in large-scale battles, and that's kind of disappointing because that's most of the game. But that's fine. It is what it is, and it does run, even if it doesn't run well in some cases. And as I mentioned, I'm having an absolute blast. I really hope that you all are enjoying this special opportunity we have to have our governments tell us it's best that we limit contact with others. There's laughter. There's maniacal laughter from the War Thunder player base. That's right. We already knew people were toxic before there was a pandemic going around. But in any event, as always, there's a link, I should say as usual, to the Discord. It's a great place to send me your replays or to get in touch with me. I should say it's the best place to get in touch with me. I'm not a super easy person to get a hold of sometimes, but I really do care, and I love to see what you all are up to. I've been spending a large amount of time taking care of my girls and just dealing with things around the home. Today I managed to synchronize naps and get the girls taking a nap at the same time, which is a rare and delightful treat, and that actually meant that I got around an hour and a half midday nap. Yes, the dream. And if I sound a lot less tired in this video, that is 100% of why, with another 15% added on, because I also drank Monster Energy like 6-7 hours ago when I went out to go do some lawn mowing, hopefully for some sweet, delicious cash monies. Always welcome. And with that, I'm not exactly sure what's happening in the video anymore, other than Captain Jack looking for his 7th kill. Somewhere, I hear something, I see someone. There's more cannon ammunition left, that's right. Did you think we were going to end this video on 6 kills? No, in fact, here he comes. Enemy, the other Orca of War Thunder, taking some very dangerous hits from the Sky Whale Original. And it's hard to compete with these 4 30mm cannons, a much lower fire rate than what you typically see among jets at this tier, and yet with incredible punching power, fantastic accuracy, and in the case of this particular jet, a lovely amount of ammunition with which to spray and pray to the Emperor. You see the power of this classic, non-existent Japanese jet. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this one, and as usual, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.